I just thought of one other thing before we do the protractor that you can use guides for, which is something I've actually used quite a bit. So I wanted to show you that before we moved on. So we'll get to the protractor one sec. One other thing that you can do is, let's say you want to make a grid that you follow and use to set up your project. So you can use your tape measure for that as well. So if you I'm just going to use this line as a reference point, so I'm just going to click kind of a little further away so we can get away from some of that stuff. And we're going to get into deleting guides in a second. But let's say that I need to make a grid, and I'm going to make the grid kind of in this general area here. I need to make a grid that is 2 feet by 2 feet. So instead of doing guide, guide, guide all the way down, what I can actually do is I can go to my move tool, and remember how we did move copy? I can select this guide and start to move it and hit my copy button, which is Alt option for me, and then do 2 feet, enter. Oops, let's try that one more time here. So I'm going to go to move, and I'm copying it in this direction, so I hit Alt, and I do, oh, looks like we need to get a little closer to see it. 2 feet, enter. So I've got my copy there. Now I can type times, and let's just say something way over the top, like times 100, enter. So now I've just copied that 100 times. So now I've got, you know, a huge series of 2-foot spaces. And instead of doing that same gesture in this direction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these guides, and you'll notice I'm doing my selection from right to left so that I select only what's captured within the within my cursor, and I'm going to use my rotate tool to click on the blue axis once while these are selected, hit my Alt, which is my copy button, and start to rotate them by clicking in this direction 90 degrees. And I can even just type in 90, enter. And then click here to select. And now what I've created here is a grid for myself that is 2 by 2, 2 foot by 2 foot spacing. And I can use this on a ceiling, I can use this if I just want to establish some sort of an order. But guides are really good for that. But you can see as we've kind of gotten to a point now where I think we should probably delete these guides. So let's go ahead and talk about that and talk about why this is the preferred method. So yes, you could always just think that you could just select them and delete them, which is completely true just by selecting and then hitting the delete key. But let me just do an Apple Z here to take that back. I'm just going to undo. I don't like to do that method because what happens quite often is when you're working and you're working fast, you might be opening up a group. So I've just double-clicked this shape to open it up, and now I'm going to put a guide inside of this group. So I'm going to do my tape measure, and I'm going to double-click on a part of this this shape up here. So I've just projected that line. Now I'm going to close that. Now let's move my way over here. Let's say I'm in this space, and I select these guides, and I delete. So I hit my delete key. And then I start working, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and I come back, and I realize this is gone. Why did that happen? The reason for that is, let me go ahead and edit, undo, erase. The reason for that is when I selected this over here, I actually selected the group as well. And the reason I selected the group as well is because this guide that I made was made while the group was open, which means it's contained within the group. So the group thinks that that guide is a part of it. So if I delete this guide, just if I select just that guide and then delete it, it goes away. And I lose not only the guide, but I lose the group that it's attached to. So the preferred method, I'm going to edit, undo that, edit, undo. The preferred method, in my opinion, at least while you're starting and really getting comfortable with this program, is to go to Edit, Delete Guides. And that's going to delete all your guides for you and get them all out of the way. I can see that this is not ideal in every situation because there might be some guides that you want to keep. So I understand that. So if you want to delete your guides using the manual method, that's totally fine. But the way I might do it then is I would go, let me go ahead and edit, undo, erase. The way I might do it is I would make sure if I'm going to select a guide and I want to delete these guides here, before I delete them, what I would do is I would do a zoom extents, and I would make sure that there's nothing else attached to it. So I'd pull way out, and I would see that there's no group that's connected to that guide. If I want to delete this guide, if I decide that this is a guide that I no longer want, the only way I can delete just this guide is to open this group up by double-clicking on it. Then I select that guide, and I hit my delete key, and then I can close it. So edit, delete guides will get rid of all of your guides. Deleting guides individually will obviously just delete them one at a time. But I recommend while you're starting, because the guides are not really that important in the beginning. You can always remake them, and they're very disposable. They're just for your use in drawing and in measuring. So I would recommend more often than not using delete guides.